Your Honor, the defendant thought his badge gave him the right to terrorize innocent citizens, but he picked the wrong co-woman to mess with. Angela Thompson's voice cut through the packed federal courtroom like a blade, her words landing with devastating precision as Officer Derek Martinez sat frozen at the defendant's table. The man who had spent 8 years believing himself untouchable was now watching his world crumble, word by calculated word. Derek's hands trembled slightly as he stared at the woman who had become his nightmare. 3 months ago, he'd pulled her over on a dark street, thinking she'd be just another easy target, another black woman he could intimidate with his badge and uniform. He'd laughed when she said she was recording him. He'd sneered when she mentioned the law. Let the record show, Angela continued, her eyes never leaving Derek's face, that Officer Martinez used his position of authority to systematically target and harass 23 victims, all of them black women, over the course of 18 months. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow, at the same time, we'll bring you another story of black people leading the way that you won't want to miss. The jury hung on every word. Derek's expensive defense attorney, paid for by the police union, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This wasn't going according to plan. He thought she'd be easy to silence, Angela said, her voice rising with controlled power, but this black woman is about to destroy him in court. Derek remembered that night clearly now, how confident he'd been, how untouchable he'd felt. The woman in the Mercedes had been so calm, so professional. Even as he'd violated her rights, he'd dismissed her threats to report him, laughed at her mention of consequences. Officer Martinez, Angela addressed him directly now. Do you remember what you told me that night on Maple Street? Derek's attorney objected, but Judge Patricia Hernandez overruled him. The courtroom fell silent. Waiting, he said, and I quote from your own body camera footage, "My badge protects me from people like you." Do you remember saying that? Derek's face flushed red. Every eye in the courtroom was on him now. The jury, the packed gallery of victims and their families, the media representatives scribbling notes. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow at the same time, we'll bring you another story of black people leading the way that you won't want to miss. Angela smiled. Not with joy, but with the satisfaction of someone who had spent months building an unbreakable case. Well, Officer Martinez, let's see how well that badge protects you now. What Derek didn't know was that Angela had been building this case from the moment he'd cuffed her on that dark street. Every piece of evidence, every witness, every legal strategy had been carefully orchestrated for this moment. He wore the badge, but she was about to wear him out in court. 18 weeks earlier, Derek Martinez had been patrolling the affluent side of town, looking for his next target. It was 11:47 p.m. when he spotted the sleek black Mercedes cruising down Maple Street. Perfect. Rich car, tinted windows, and in this neighborhood after midnight, definitely suspicious. He flipped on his lights and pulled the vehicle over, already planning his approach. 8 years on the force had taught him that intimidation worked best with people who had something to lose. Rich folks, especially minorities, usually folded quickly when faced with his authority. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a poised black woman in her 40s wearing a navy business suit. Everything about her screamed success, from her perfectly styled hair to her confident posture. Derek's jaw tightened. He hated when they acted like they were better than him. License and registration, he barked, his hand moving to rest on his service weapon. A gesture he'd perfected to make people nervous. Good evening, officer, the woman replied calmly. May I ask the reason for this stop? I was following all traffic laws. Derek's eyes narrowed. Here we go, he thought. Another one who thinks she's above the law. I'll ask the questions here. License and registration. Now, Officer Martinez, she said, reading his name tag. I'm going to reach into my purse for my documents. I want you to see my hands at all times. Her calm professionalism only made him angrier. Why couldn't she just be afraid like the others? Are you trying to tell me how to do my job? Derek stepped closer to the window. Step out of the vehicle. Officer, I haven't committed any violation. This appears to be an unlawful stop. Unlawful? Derek laughed harshly. Lady, I am the law out here. You people think your fancy cars and expensive clothes make you untouchable, but my badge says otherwise. As the woman stepped out of her Mercedes, Derek noticed something that should have given him pause. She wasn't trembling, wasn't stumbling over her words, wasn't showing any of the fear he was used to seeing. Instead, she moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what was happening and exactly what to do about it. I'm recording this interaction, Officer Martinez, she said clearly, and I want you to know that your behavior is being documented. Derek grabbed her wrist roughly, spinning her around to face the car. Record all you want. My badge protects me from people like you. He thought she'd be just another case, but this black woman was about to make history in court. What Derek didn't realize was that he just made the biggest mistake of his career. Angela Thompson had built her career on preparation, patience, and precision. As the newly appointed head of civil rights prosecutions for the federal district, she'd handled hundreds of cases involving police misconduct, but nothing had prepared her for the personal violation she'd experienced that night on Maple Street. Sitting in her corner office 3 days after the incident, Angela reviewed Derek Martinez's personnel file with growing horror. 17 excessive force complaints, 12 racial profiling incidents, a pattern of behavior that stretched back years, all overlooked by supervisors who'd chosen to look the other way. He used his badge to silence others, Angela murmured to herself. But he picked the wrong woman this time. Her assistant, Maria Santos, knocked and entered with a stack of files. Miss Thompson, I've pulled every case involving Officer Martinez from the past 2 years. There are over 300 incidents. Angela's eyes hardened as she began reviewing the files. Traffic stops, arrests, incident reports, all painting a picture of systematic abuse that made her stomach turn. Derek Martinez hadn't just crossed the line, he'd obliterated it, one victim at a time. The first file she opened contained dashcam footage of Derek pulling over Mrs. Eleanor Washington, a 65-year-old retired teacher. Angela watched in disgust as Derek screamed at the elderly woman, forcing her out of her car for the crime of driving while black in a nice neighborhood. He thought she'd be easy to silence, Angela said, watching Mrs. Washington's dignified composure in the face of Derek's abuse. But look at her strength. File after file revealed the same pattern, Derek targeting black women, using his authority to humiliate and intimidate them, confident that his badge would protect him from consequences. Young mothers, elderly grandmothers, professional women, students, all victimized by a man who believed himself untouchable. Angela called Detective Sarah Kim, her most trusted investigator. Sarah, I need you to personally handle this case. We're going to build something that's never been attempted before. A federal civil rights case that doesn't just stop one bad cop, but sends a message to every officer who thinks they're above the law. What's the timeline? Sarah asked. However long it takes to build an airtight case. Derek Martinez has been terrorizing women for years, thinking his badge makes him invincible. It's time to show him that no one, absolutely no one, is above the law. As Angela began planning her strategy, she couldn't shake Derek's words from that night. My badge protects me from people like you. He wore the badge, but she was about to wear him out in court, and the entire justice system would be watching. Detective Sarah Kim had never seen evidence this overwhelming. Sitting in the war room Angela had set up, surrounded by boxes of files, video screens, and witness statements, she felt like she was documenting a reign of terror. Angela, this is worse than we thought, Sarah said, reviewing the latest batch of complaints. Martinez has been operating like a one-man occupying army in black neighborhoods for years. Angela nodded grimly, her eyes fixed on a video monitor showing Derek's encounter with 23-year-old Jasmine Cooper, a nursing student he'd pulled over for looking suspicious while driving to her night shift at the hospital. Look at this, Angela said, replaying the footage. He makes her get out of the car, searches her without cause, and when she asks why, he tells her to learn her place. This is exactly what he did to me. The evidence was staggering. 23 confirmed victims, all black women, all subjected to Derek's systematic harassment. But what made Angela's case extraordinary wasn't just the number of victims, it was the pattern of escalation. He started with traffic stops, Sarah observed, pointing to incidents from 2 years ago. But look at how his behavior intensified over time. By last year, he was using physical force, making arrests on bogus charges, even following some of these women to their homes. Angela's phone buzzed with a text from Maria. Channel 7 wants to interview you about the Martinez case. The story is going viral. Not yet, Angela replied. We do this right, or we don't do it at all. Meanwhile, Derek Martinez was still on duty, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. He dismissed the incident with the woman in the Mercedes as just another successful intimidation. In his mind, he'd shown another uppity black woman who was really in charge. But Angela was methodically building something Derek couldn't comprehend. A case that would not only end his career, but change how police misconduct was prosecuted across the country. Sarah, I want you to personally interview every victim. I want their stories documented, their trauma acknowledged, and their voices heard. Derek Martinez thought he could silence these women with his badge. But we're going to amplify their voices until the whole world hears them. Sarah nodded. What about Martinez himself? Should we bring him in for questioning? Angela's smile was cold and calculated. Not yet. Let him think he's safe. Let him keep believing his badge protects him. Because when we finally move, I want it to be with such overwhelming force that he never sees it coming. He thought she'd be just another case. But this black woman was about to make history in court. And Derek Martinez was about to learn that justice, when it finally arrives with devastating precision. Derek Martinez was finishing his paperwork on a Thursday evening when Sergeant Bob Kowalski called him into the office. Derek expected another commendation, maybe recognition for his proactive policing, or overtime approval. Instead, he found himself facing 2 internal affairs investigators and a federal subpoena. Officer Martinez, said Lieutenant Patricia Hayes from Internal Affairs, you're being formally investigated for conspiracy to violate civil rights, deprivation of rights under color of law, and assault under color of authority. Derek's confident smirk faltered. This is ridiculous. What's this about? It's about your systematic targeting of black women over the past 18 months, Lieutenant Hayes continued, sliding a tablet across the table. We have documented evidence of 23 separate incidents. Derek's face went pale as he watched his own body camera footage from that night on Maple Street. There he was in high definition, making racist comments, using unnecessary force, and smugly declaring that his badge protected him from people like her. We have 23 similar incidents. Martinez, your badge doesn't protect you from the law, it makes you accountable to it. Derek's hands shook as he watched footage of himself terrorizing Mrs. Washington, harassing Jasmine Cooper, and intimidating victim after victim. Look, maybe I was having some bad nights, but I'm a good cop. I protect and serve. You protect and serve yourself, Hayes replied coldly. You're suspended without pay pending the outcome of this investigation. That evening, Derek called his union representative in a panic. The news was even worse than he'd feared. Derek, they've got you dead to rights, his rep said. The prosecutor handling your case is Angela Thompson, the new head of civil rights prosecutions. Word is, she's been building this case for months. Thompson? That name sounds familiar. It should. She's the woman you pulled over 18 weeks ago. The one in the Mercedes. Derek's blood ran cold. The woman he'd humiliated, the one he dismissed as just another uppity black woman, was now the federal prosecutor who held his career and his freedom in her hands. She can't prosecute me, Derek stammered. It's a conflict of interest. She's personally involved. His union rep laughed bitterly. Derek, she's not just personally involved, she's personally motivated. And from what I'm hearing, her case is bulletproof. For the first time in his 8-year career, Derek Martinez realized that his badge couldn't protect him. The woman he thought he'd silenced was about to destroy him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. He used his badge to silence others, until a black woman made him pay in court, and that payment was about to be extracted with interest. The story exploded across social media within hours of Derek's suspension. This badge of shame began trending as victims of police misconduct shared their stories. But this case was different. Angela Thompson had built something unprecedented, and the media sensed it. Standing behind the podium at the federal courthouse, Angela addressed a packed room of reporters. Every major network was there. along with civil rights organizations and community leaders who understood the historical significance of what was happening. "Let me be clear," Angela began, her voice carrying the weight of months of preparation. "This case isn't about personal vendetta. It's about accountability. Officer Martinez spent years believing his badge made him untouchable. But no one, absolutely no one, is above the law." Derek watched the press conference from his apartment, his anger and panic building with each word. He couldn't believe that the woman he'd humiliated was now controlling his destiny, speaking about him on national television like he was some common criminal. His phone rang constantly, reporters wanting his side of the story, fellow officers either offering support or distancing themselves from him. His wife, Carmen, was being harassed at work, and their teenage daughter was coming home from school in tears. "This is destroying our family, Derek," Carmen sobbed. "How could you do this to us?" "I was just doing my job," Derek protested weakly. But even he was beginning to doubt his own words, as more evidence surfaced daily. The breaking point came when Channel 7 aired a special report featuring 5 of Derek's victims. Mrs. Eleanor Washington, the retired teacher, spoke with quiet dignity about her encounter with Derek. "He made me feel like I was nothing," she said, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "Like being a black woman meant I deserved to be treated like an animal. But Miss Thompson, she gave me my voice back." Angela's final preparation was meticulous. She'd spent weeks rehearsing her opening statement, reviewing every piece of evidence, preparing for every possible defense strategy. This wasn't just another case, it was the case that would define her career and send a message that would reverberate through every police department in America. "Sarah," she said to Detective Kim on the eve of the trial, "Derek Martinez thought he picked on just another black woman that night. He thought I'd be too scared or too intimidated to fight back." Sarah nodded. "But he picked the wrong black woman to mess with." Angela's smile was sharp as steel. "Tomorrow, that courtroom is going to be silent as I take the stand and show him exactly what happens when you underestimate the power of a black woman who knows the law." He thought she'd be easy to silence, but this black woman was about to destroy him in court, and the whole world would be watching. The federal courthouse had never seen anything like it. Every seat was filled, with overflow crowds watching on screens in the lobby. National media lined the walls, and civil rights leaders sat in the front rows. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning. Derek Martinez sat at the defendant's table in an ill-fitting suit, looking smaller and more vulnerable than he ever had in his police uniform. The badge that had once made him feel invincible was gone, replaced by the cold reality of federal charges that could put him away for decades. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Angela began her closing argument. 3 months ago, Officer Martinez pulled me over on a dark street and told me that his badge protected him from people like me. Today, we're gonna find out if that's true." She methodically walked the jury through the evidence: dashcam footage, body camera recordings, witness testimony from 23 victims. Each piece of evidence was a nail in Derek's coffin, carefully placed by a prosecutor who had turned her personal violation into a masterpiece of legal strategy. "He thought she'd be easy to silence," Angela said, gesturing toward the gallery where Derek's victims sat. "But these black women, these mothers, teachers, students, professionals, they refused to be silenced. They stood up, they spoke out, and they demanded justice." Derek's expensive defense attorney made a final, desperate plea. "My client made mistakes, but he's not the monster the prosecution wants you to believe." Angela's rebuttal was devastating. The defendant didn't make mistakes. He made choices. 23 separate choices to abuse his power, to violate civil rights, to terrorize innocent women because he believed his badge made him untouchable. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. "Guilty on all counts," the foreman announced. Derek's face crumbled as the reality hit him. His badge, his authority, his sense of invincibility, all of it shattered in that moment. 6 months later, Derek stood in shackles before Judge Patricia Hernandez for sentencing. The courtroom was again packed with his victims, their families, and supporters who had followed the case. "Mr. Martinez," Judge Hernandez began, "you violated the fundamental trust placed in you by the community. You used your position to systematically target and terrorize innocent citizens based on their race and gender. Angela watched from the prosecutor's table as Derek's wife and daughter wept in the gallery. She felt no joy in their pain, but she knew that justice demanded accountability. "I sentence you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are permanently barred from working in law enforcement in any capacity." Derek's knees buckled as the sentence was read. 12 years. His career was over. His family was destroyed, and his reputation was in ruins. As Derek was led away in handcuffs, he made eye contact with Angela one final time. The woman he had dismissed as uppity, the one he thought he could intimidate with his badge, had systematically dismantled his life and career with the precision of a master strategist. Outside the courthouse, Angela addressed the media one final time. "Today's sentence sends a clear message. The badge is not a license to violate civil rights." Officer Martinez thought his badge made him untouchable. But he learned that in America, justice will always find a way. Mrs. Washington approached Angela after the press conference. "Thank you," she said simply. "You didn't just get justice for yourself, you got it for all of us." As Angela drove home that evening, she reflected on the journey from that dark night on Maple Street to this moment of triumph. Derek Martinez had thought his badge made him untouchable, but he'd picked the wrong black woman to mess with. He wore the badge, but she wore him out in court, and the sound of those courtroom doors closing behind him would echo through police departments across America for years to come.